Hello and welcome. My name is Olivia. I have been working in the travel industry for 8 years and I have been booking my own flights for 12 years. And today I'm going to show you exactly what I do to get the best flights for the best prices. My first tip for you is kind of an anti-tip, and that's something you do not need to do. You may have heard that booking flights at certain times of the day or on Tuesdays in particular could get you better prices. This did used to be true, but the way that flights are listed online has changed, and this is no longer the case. If you're ready to book flights, you do not need to consider the day of the week or the time of the day in your decision making. The next thing is something I want you to definitely do when you book your flights, and that is book directly with the airline. If you use another website to shop for flights or compare different options, that's totally fine. I personally use Google Flights. But once you find the flight that you want to book, go directly to the airline's website and book it there. If you need to make any changes or cancellations to your flights, or if you have any problems while you're traveling, the airline is really going to be the one who has the most power to help you. So you'll probably get better customer service and you'll have an easier time resolving those problems if you are working directly with the airline instead of with a third-party website. The one exception to this is if you can bundle your flights with a vacation package that also includes things like a resort or transfers. Sometimes this can save you a lot of money and it can be worth it as long as you still book with a trusted source. The third thing I want you to do is be mindful of flight schedules. When you're comparing different flights with different prices, really keep in mind the value of your comfort and time. This is going to be different for everybody, but it definitely is not something you want to overlook. When I was 17 traveling to Istanbul and I had a lot more time than I had money, and I had a friend picking me up from the airport in Istanbul, I didn't really mind traveling over the course of 30 hours, having a 7-hour layover in Frankfurt, and getting to Istanbul at 10 p.m. But 10 years later, taking the same trip, I do not want to do a 7-hour layover with my kids. I don't want to get there at 10 p.m. and try to get an Uber, and if the trip can be several hours shorter, I'm willing to spend more money to get that better flight. So this is where personal preference really comes in and will be the deciding factor. The two things I want you to consider the most when comparing schedules are arrival time in your destination. So if you're spending a lot of money to enjoy the amenities of a resort, or if you are going to be arriving somewhere unfamiliar alone or relying on public transportation, it might be worth it to spend a little bit more money to get there early afternoon versus late at night. The other thing I want you to keep a close eye on is connection times. If your vacation time is limited or comfort is a priority while you travel, you might want to avoid connection times that are too long, but I especially want you to look out for connection times that are too short. If you are traveling and you have a domestic connection or a really simple connection where you just need to get from point A to point B within the airport to make the next flight, and that's all you need to worry about, then I say start with about an hour, looking for connections that are about an hour in length, and look for about 2 hours for more comfort. If you have a more complicated connection or you're going to be going through customs and immigration, I start that search looking for 2-hour connections, 3 hours for more comfort. Do I and have I sometimes booked connections that are a little bit shorter than this? Yes, but you get much shorter than this and you're looking at a real possibility that you are going to miss your flight and then you will be bumped to a later flight, sometimes as late as the next day. If the price difference is drastic and you're totally comfortable with the possibility that your travel time could extend many hours past what you thought it would, you can go ahead and book these tickets. But for most people, that would put a huge damper on their vacation and it just isn't worth it. American Airlines, if you are watching this, please stop it with the 35-minute connections. I don't know why airlines are doing this. I don't know if they're just trying to get a higher price on those late night flights they're going to bump you to or what, but I am tired of seeing it. I'm seeing this really frequently lately, so please, please, please keep an eye out for it. Before you click to book the tickets, make sure you have double-checked the connection times. The next thing that I want you to do, in addition to comparing the different flight schedules, is make sure you are comparing the different inclusions or terms with the different airlines or even classes you are booking. One flight might look significantly cheaper but include much less, so by the time you are done paying for your paper boarding pass, your seat assignment, and your carry-on, you could end up spending just the same or maybe even more money than the airline that includes those things and has better service. So consider cost a little bit more deeply than that initial price you see on the ticket. The same kind of comparing that I want you to do from airline to airline is something I also want you to do when comparing different classes on the same flight. For example, if you are considering a basic economy ticket and an economy ticket, the basic economy ticket might be $80 cheaper, but it doesn't include a carry-on. And by the time you pay for luggage, you're now looking at the same cost, but you have also given up your ability to select your seat or change your flight if something comes up. So before you go for the very cheapest option on any airline, review what you're giving up to get that better price. Sometimes it is worth it, but sometimes it's not. And when it comes to both schedules and flight classes, what's worth it and what's not is really going to be different every single flight and for every single person. One thing that I do want you to consider when you book your flights is getting travel insurance. If you're not keen on spending any more money, at least review and consider that insurance offered by the airline as you are checking out. It's usually pretty minimal in coverage, but it's also usually pretty minimal in cost, and something is better than nothing. If you have a complicated trip, or you're traveling out of the country and your medical insurance won't be valid abroad, or if you are traveling with a lot of valuables, it is especially worth it to look into a third-party insurance option. These can be a little bit pricier, but they can cover a whole lot more, and it's really worth it to protect your investment. I could make a whole separate video of horror stories of people who should have had travel insurance and didn't. Do not put yourself into one of those situations. You might travel 100 times and you don't use it or need it 99 of those times, but the one time you do need it, you are going to be so thankful that you have it. My next tip is perhaps the single best thing you can do to make a positive impact on the flight prices you get on your next trip, and that is plan ahead. If you are looking at a domestic trip, I recommend starting to plan at least 3 months prior. If you are thinking about an international trip, I would start planning at least 5 to 6 months prior, but most major airlines release their flights about 330 days prior to the flight. So really, as far out as 330 days in advance is ideal to start shopping for airfare. What I want you to do is go to Google Flights and search for your route. Once you do this, you'll be able to compare different ticket options with different airlines, and you will be able to see if prices are on the low side, in the normal range, or on the high side. If prices are on the low side, no matter how far in advance you're looking, I recommend snagging them. Lately, I've seen flight prices trend up and up and up, getting higher and higher as we get closer to travel, and I really recommend not hesitating on a good deal because you don't know when those are going to wildly fluctuate. Getting a ticket at a good price early on is a great idea. Even if it's on the low to average side of normal, I still personally would buy that ticket at that time because, like I said, flight prices have been high and getting higher. I would rather pay a normal, reasonable rate for a ticket than to end up paying a lot more later. If you are planning well in advance and you're not ready to book yet, or if the prices are currently on the high side, what I want you to do is click the button to track that route or track that flight. You can track general routes or specific flights. If there's a flight you like, I recommend going ahead and doing both. When you do this, you will automatically get emails whenever the price fluctuates. Recently, I was tracking a flight from Fargo to Austin, Texas, and it was oscillating between $430 and $380, and I would go back and forth between the two every couple of days. Having this information would have been great if I were looking to book, as I would have known that it was pretty predictably $380 and I could book it at that lower rate. What ended up happening that would have been even better if I were looking for that trip is there was one date where it fell to $280. If I had bought it at that time, I would have saved myself at least $100 and I didn't have to do anything for it except watch my emails. So when you combine planning in advance for those better prices with tracking the flights, you can really make sure you get whatever flights you're looking at the very best price they fall to. If you're only a few months out from your trip and prices are not falling below average or they seem to start climbing a little bit, then I would go ahead and get them. Aren't there great last minute deals on flights? Yes. But that's not super common, and way more often than not, waiting until last minute to see if you get a deal is going to mean you just pay a lot more than you could have. Last minute deals are best left to those that can be really flexible in both their destination and their dates. They spring up really randomly. Which leads me into the next thing. If you are very flexible with either your destination or your dates, there are a couple of extra things you can do to find really low cost flights. One of them is in Google Flights. You can use the calendar feature to compare different days. Sometimes being flexible just by a few days to travel from a Wednesday to a Wednesday instead of from a Saturday to a Saturday can make a pretty big difference in price. You can use the calendar feature when searching for your flights to see if there are any days of the week or times of the year that are lower in price. If you're flexible about where you go, you can be really vague in the destination you input, and then you can compare the different prices of different destinations. So when I search on Google Flights, I put Fargo to Europe, and what I found doing this was that flying into Lisbon, Portugal is several $100s cheaper than flying literally anywhere else into Europe. Portugal is one of the places I wanted to go, so this is something that I can easily mold my trip around to save a lot of money. I'm traveling with myself and 2 children, so just this is saving me over $1,500 on my whole trip already. Something else you can use if you have the travel bug but you're really flexible with your destination is a website called Scott's Cheap Flights. There is a subscription fee to get the most out of the service, but you can input what your home airports are, and you will receive email alerts anytime there's an extraordinary deal leaving those airports. Here are some of them that I have had in my inbox just over the last month. These ones here are all at least $500 cheaper than the standard fares for my area, which means even if I just booked one trip, I would save enough money to pay for many years of the service. If you are just booking flights, I really encourage you to try using these tips and book your own flight. If you are booking a vacation package or you have a more complicated trip to plan, I really suggest you reach out to a well-reviewed local travel agent. They are going to be experienced and know all of the ins and outs of everything I'm talking about today. They are going to give you great customer service. They usually charge no fees or very low fees. And if you do have any problems or requests, you are going to deal with their great customer service while they deal with the larger companies and call centers for you. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please give me a like. I would love to hear any questions you have, or if you would like to see a deeper dive into Okay, the gimbal tripod I was using to film totally gave up on me. If you have any questions about travel or booking your own flights, or if you would like to see a deeper dive into any one of these tips in another video, please leave a comment below. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching my video, and I hope to see you next time.